For more than a decade, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr engaged in a flurry of bitter disagreements on how to build and govern the young United States. In the spring of 1804, hostilities grew as the two exchanged a series of increasingly contentious letters. Their rivalry culminated in the early morning hours of July 11th, when two boats set off from Manhattan to Weehawken, New Jersey, each carrying an oarsman, a duelist, their second, a surgeon, and a hidden pistol. But only one of the dueling founding fathers would survive what happened next. The original letters of 1804, as well as official accounts of the notorious deadly duel, are presented here in faithful reenactment.
Charles D. Cooper to Philip Schuyler, Albany, April 23, 1804. Sir, I assert that General Hamilton declared that he looked upon Mr. Burr to be a dangerous man and one who ought not to be trusted with the reins of government. During a meeting of Federalists at the City Tavern, General Hamilton made a speech on the pending election. General Hamilton and about 100 Federalists in New York would not vote for Mr. Burr. Really, sir, I could detail to you a still more despicable opinion which General Hamilton has expressed of Mr. Burr. I am, sir, with due respect, your humble servant, Charles D. Cooper. To General Hamilton, June 18, 1804. Sir, I send for your perusal a letter signed Charles D. Cooper, which, though apparently published some time ago, has but very recently come to my knowledge. Mr. Van Ness, who does me the favor to deliver this, will point out to you that clause of the letter to which I particularly request your attention. You must perceive, sir, the necessity of a prompt and unqualified acknowledgement or denial of the use of any expressions which could warrant the assertions of Dr. Cooper. I have the honor to be your obedient servant, A. Burr.
20th of June, 1804. Sir, I have maturely reflected on the subject of your letter of the 18th, and the more I have reflected, the more I have become convinced that I could not make the avowal or disavowal which you seem to think necessary. The clause pointed out by Mr. Van Ness is in these terms. I could detail to you a still more despicable opinion which General Hamilton has expressed of Mr. Burr. To endeavor to discover the meaning of this declaration, I was obliged to seek in the antecedent part of the letter. I found it in these words. General Hamilton and Judge Kent have declared in substance that they looked upon Mr. Burr to be a dangerous man and one who ought not to be trusted with the reins of government. The language of Dr. Cooper plainly implies that he considered this opinion of you, which he attributes to me, as a despicable one, without, however, mentioning to whom, when, or where. How am I to judge of the degree intended? Between gentlemen despicable and still more despicable are not worth the pains of a distinction. Now, what could you draw as a guide for your future conduct were I to acknowledge that I had expressed an opinion of you still more despicable than the one which is particularized? But I forbear further comment on the embarrassment to which the requisition you have made naturally leads. Repeating that I cannot make the acknowledgement or denial you desire, I will add that I deem it inadmissible to consent to be interrogated as to the justness of the inferences which may be drawn by others from whatever I may have said of a political opponent in the course of a 15 years competition. I stand ready to avow or disavow any precise or definite opinion which I may have been charged with having declared. More than this cannot fitly be expected from me. I trust upon more reflection you will see the matter in the same light with me. If not, I can only regret the circumstances and must abide the consequences. The publication of Dr. Cooper was never seen by me till after your letter. Sir, I have the honor to be your obedient servant, A. Hamilton.
New York, June 21st, 1804, to General Hamilton. Sir, your letter of the 20th has been this day received. Having considered it attentively, I regret to find in it nothing of that sincerity and delicacy which you profess to value. Political opposition can never absolve gentlemen from the necessity of a rigid adherence to the laws of honor and the rules of decorum. I neither claim such privilege nor indulge it in others. The common sense of mankind affixes to the epithet adopted by Dr. Cooper the idea of dishonor. It has been publicly applied to me under the sanction of your name. The question is not whether he has understood the meaning of the word or has used it according to syntax and with grammatical accuracy, but whether you have authorized this application either directly or by uttering expression or opinion derogatory to my honor. The time when is in your own knowledge, but no way material to me, as the calumny has now just been disclosed so as to become the subject of my notice. Your letter has furnished me with new reasons for requiring a definite reply. I have the honor to be your obedient servant, A. Burr. June 22nd, 1804, to General Hamilton. Mr. Van Ness has this evening reported to me verbally that you refused to answer my last letter. My request to you was, in a form the most simple in order that you might give to the affair that course by your temper and your knowledge of facts. I relied with unsuspecting faith that from the frankness of a soldier and the candor of a gentleman I might expect an honest declaration. That if, as I had reason to believe, you had used expressions derogatory to my honor, you would have had the spirit to maintain or the magnanimity to retract them, and that if from your language injurious inferences had been improperly drawn, sincerity and delicacy would have pointed out to you the propriety of correcting errors. With these impressions, I was greatly disappointed in receiving from you a letter which I could only consider as evasive. In one expectation, however, I was not wholly deceived, for at the close of your letter I find an intimation that if I should dislike your refusal to acknowledge or deny the charge, you were ready to meet the consequences. This I deemed a sort of defiance. You had also said something of the indefiniteness of my request, as I believed your communication was the offspring rather of false pride than of reflection, and as I felt the utmost reluctance to proceed to extremities while any other hope remained, my request was repeated in terms more definite. To this you refuse all reply, reposing, as I am bound to presume, on the tender of an alternative insinuated in your letter. Thus, sir, you have invited the course I am about to pursue, and now, by your silence, impose upon me. If, therefore, your determinations are final, Mr. Van Ness is authorized to communicate my further expectations, either to yourself or to such friend as you may be pleased to indicate. I have the honor to be your obedient servant, A. Burr.
New York, June 22nd, 1804. Sir, your first letter, in a style too peremptory, made a demand, in my opinion, unprecedented and unwarrantable. My answer, pointing out the embarrassment, gave you an opportunity to take a less exceptionable course. You have not chosen to do it. But by your last letter containing expressions indecorous and improper, you have increased the difficulties to explanation. If, by a definite reply, you mean the direct avowal or disavowal required in your first letter, I have no other answer to give. If you mean anything different, it is requisite you should explain. I have the honor to be, sir, your obedient servant, A. Hamilton.
To Pendleton, June 26th, 1804. Sir, the letter which you yesterday delivered me and your subsequent communication in Colonel Burr's opinion evinced no disposition on the part of General Hamilton to come to a satisfactory accommodation. The injury complained of and the reparation expected are so definitely expressed that there is no need for further explanation. The difficulty that would result from confining the inquiry to any particular times and occasions must be manifest. When and where the injurious expressions and opinions have been uttered by General Hamilton must be known to him best, and of him only, and does Colonel Burr think it proper to inquire. No denial or declaration will be satisfactory unless it be general, so as to wholly deny that rumors derogatory to Colonel Burr's honor can have originated with General Hamilton. A definite reply was demanded in Colonel Burr's letter of the 21st. This being refused, invites the alternative alluded to in General Hamilton's letter of the 20th. The controversy was placed by General Hamilton on the 22nd, and I was immediately furnished with a communication demanding a personal duel. The necessity of this measure has not, in the opinion of Colonel Burr, been diminished by the General's last letter or any subsequent communication which has been received, and I am again instructed to deliver to you a message as soon as it may be convenient for you to receive it. I beg, therefore, that you will have the politeness to inform me at what hour I shall wait on you. Your most obedient and very humble servant, William P. Van Ness.
To Mr. Pendleton. Late June, 1804. I was certainly desirous of avoiding this duel for the most cogent reasons. First, my religious and moral principles are strongly opposed to the practice of dueling, and it would ever give me pain to be obliged to shed the blood of a fellow creature in a private combat forbidden by the laws. Second, my wife and children are extremely dear to me, and my life is of the utmost importance to them. Third, I feel a sense of obligation towards my creditors, who in case of accident to me may be in some degree sufferers. I did not think myself at liberty as a man of probity lightly to expose them to this hazard. Fourth, I am conscious of no ill will to Colonel Burr, distinct from political opposition, which, as I trust, has proceeded from pure and upright motives. Lastly, I shall hazard much, and can possibly gain nothing by the issue of the duel. But it was impossible for me to avoid it. There were intrinsic difficulties in the thing, and artificial embarrassments from the manner of proceeding on the part of Colonel Burr. The disavowal required of me by Colonel Burr, in a general and indefinite form, was out of my power. Besides that, Colonel Burr appeared to me to assume, in the first instance, a tone unnecessarily peremptory and menacing, and in the second, positively offensive. Yet, I wished to leave a door open to accommodation. It is not my design to affix any odium on the conduct of Colonel Burr in this case. He doubtless has heard of animadversions of mine, which bore very hard upon him, and it is probable that, as usual, they were accompanied with some falsehoods. He may have supposed himself under a necessity of acting as he has done. I trust at the same time that the world will do me the justice to believe that I have not answered him on light grounds. I certainly have had strong reasons for what I may have said, though it is possible that in some cases I was influenced by misinformation. It is also my ardent wish that I may have been more mistaken than I think I have been, and that he by his future conduct may show himself worthy of all confidence and esteem, and prove an ornament and blessing to his country. As well, because it is possible that I may have injured Colonel Burr, I have resolved to reserve and throw away my first fire, and I have thought even of reserving my second fire, thus giving a double opportunity to Colonel Burr to pause and reflect. It is not, However, my intention to enter into any explanations on the ground, apology from principle, I hope, rather than pride, is out of the question.
1. The parties will leave town tomorrow morning about 5 o'clock and meet at the place agreed on. The party arriving first shall wait for the other.
2. Colonel Burr arrived first on the ground, as had been previously agreed. When General Hamilton arrived, the parties exchanged salutations, and the seconds proceeded to make their arrangements.
2. The weapons shall be pistols, not exceeding 11 inches in the barrel, the distance 10 paces. 3. The choice of positions to be determined by lot.
They measured the distance, 10 full paces, and cast lots for the choice of positions, as also determined by whom the word should be given, both of which fell to the second of General Hamilton. The gentleman who was to give the word then explained to the parties the rules which were to govern them in firing.
4. The parties having taken their positions, one of the seconds, to be determined by lot, after having ascertained that both parties are ready, shall loudly and distinctly give the word present. If one of the parties fires and the other hath not fired, the opposite second shall say, 1, 2, 3, fire, and he shall then fire or lose his shot. A snap or flash is a fire.
They were prepared. Being answered in the affirmative, he gave the word present, as had been agreed on, and both of the parties took aim and fired in succession.
The intervening time is not expressed, as the seconds do not precisely agree on that point. The pistols were discharged within a few seconds of each other, and the fire of Colonel Burr took effect. General Hamilton almost instantly fell.
Colonel Burr then advanced toward General Hamilton with a manner and gesture that appeared to be expressive of regret, but without speaking, turned about and withdrew.
Being urged from the field by his friend with a view to prevent his being recognized by the surgeon and bargemen who were then approaching, no farther communications took place between the principals, and the barge that carried Colonel Burr immediately returned to the city. We conceive it proper to add that the conduct of the parties in that duel was perfectly proper as suited the occasion.
This letter, my dear Eliza, will not be delivered to you unless I shall first have terminated my earthly career to begin, as I humbly hope, from redeeming grace and divine mercy, a happy immortality. If it had been possible for me to have avoided the duel, my love for you and my precious children would have been alone a decisive motive. But it was not possible without sacrifices which would have rendered me unworthy of your esteem. I need not tell you of the pangs I feel from the idea of quitting you and exposing you to the anguish which I know you would feel, nor could I dwell upon the topic, lest it should unman me. The consolations of religion, my beloved, can alone support you, and these you have a right to enjoy. Fly to the bosom of your God and be comforted with my last idea. I shall cherish the sweet hope of meeting you in a better world. Adieu, best of wives, best of women. Embrace all my darling children for me.